Hello once again. It's Talking Football, our last show before Thanksgiving week. Mike, the season is just flying by.
Yeah, it is. It's you blinked and it's here. We were working on week 5 or 6 just yesterday, and all of a sudden here's 12.
Yeah. Do you when you were coaching, did it fly by like this, or did you have a different sense of it?
Depends on how many games you're winning. When you're winning, it flew by. When you're losing, it was agony. So
So
I've been both
all
ways.
those you had like 3 seasons in a row where you started 6-0. Those were flying by, but that 02 season when you started 0-5, that was
That was
not
hard.
quite the same, huh?
Well, it was hard. And then we got going again, but that was a tough season. That was a character builder. And then, of course, 03 was a real good year. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That 02 season, you went from 0-5 to 5-5. You really brought that team back. But let's start off as we always do, kind of looking back at the past week. In week 11, we had some just mega matchups, some very close games. I mean, every week there's something exciting and unexpected the league has to offer, but that was especially the case last week. Let's go back, Michael, if you don't mind, to that Thursday night game, Eagles and Commanders. You and I both picked the Eagles, but boy, it was a close game. Philly was up only 12-10 with I think just under 8 minutes to play, and Washington has a 4th and 2 from the 27, and Dan Quinn chooses to go for it, even though a field goal would have given them the lead. What do you think about that move?
um, like I said before, it kind of depends on what you have for that situation. If you're feeling really good about it, now everybody prepares for the situation. You have a long list of situations and you have plays
Right.
for it. Some you feel better than others. If it's they felt really good about it, yeah, I'd do it. I've been in that situation before, but not knowing what you have for it, I'd have gone for the lead. Yeah, it's a low scoring game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Jaden Daniels, we talked a little bit about this last week. He doesn't seem to be, maybe as much on his game as he was earlier in the season, and that seemed to be the case again against Washington. Against Philadelphia. They couldn't seem to get much going downfield in that game.
No, and the big deal is there's a real good book on him now.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, and you go back and look at the teams that have played him very well, and you kind of draw from that. And he's a step slower than he was at the beginning of the year. He looks fatigued to me. He doesn't have the same legs.
Mm-hmm.
He's been hit pretty good, and he's not a big guy. He's a real slender guy. So, yeah, I think the fact that he's hitting the wall a little bit physically, and the fact that people have a good defenses now. I've got a pretty good feel for
Right.
what they're doing with them on offense.
Yeah, they're about a receiver short too. Don't you think they need a little help there?
Yeah, they do. They really do. And the biggest issue for him is they've relied in man-to-man coverage when guys can't get off the tight press stuff. Because it's man-to-man, he'll break and make a play with his legs. So when they're in man-to-man, they're very sensitive to that. They just don't let him out. If they do, they just don't have anybody can separate right now.
Yeah, yeah. Steelers and Ravens. What a slugfest this one was. We both actually picked the Ravens, and but they had 3 turnovers, which resulted in 3 Steelers field goals. And then on the flip side, Justin Tucker, who's the most successful kicker in NFL history, he missed a couple field goals, and so the Ravens go down 18-16.
The deciding factor for both of us when we picked that, of course, was the running back and their ability to gash him a little bit in the run game. That just didn't come to fruition, so to speak. They put a pretty good damper on all the stuff that they were doing offensively. They did a good job.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said before, I think he's the best head coach in the league. He wins with less than anybody in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They don't beat themselves. They generally don't make mistakes. And no matter what happens, they just keep storming the fence, the wall. They just keep coming at you. And defensively, they're not a pretty team. They're not a team you're going to talk about in the coffee room or whatever. All they do is win.
Yeah, yeah. Mike Tomlin, of course, who Mike Martz is referring to. The Steelers have won 8 of the last 9 versus the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson. We talked about this a little last week. He's now 1-4 versus the Steelers. Mike, whether it's fair or not, I still think there's a little, for all the great things Lamar Jackson does, just a little bit of a question of how is he in big games. He's got to really cement his legacy. He's got to win some of these bigger games, doesn't he?
He does, and I think one of the things you have to analyze too is what his success record is against a really good pass rush fronts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how successful he's been with that lately, in particular, and I don't think it's very good.
Yeah, yeah. This is the 8th consecutive Ravens and Steelers game. I saw this by an old colleague that's covered the Steelers for years in Pittsburgh, Jerry Dulac. 8 consecutive meeting where neither team scored 20 points. I mean, This is get the brass knuckles out, huh?
Yeah, and they're really good defense now. Really good defense. And they know
Bills
so well.
Bills and Chiefs. More than a month ago, Mike, you had the saying I referred to several times. I just thought it was great. We were talking about all these narrow escapes, and you were likening the Chiefs to a rubber band that somehow had that flexibility to bounce back and win a game. And you said, sooner or later, the rubber band will break. Well, it broke this past Sunday against the Bills. You and I both picked the Bills. Why did you kind of see this coming, Mike?
Well, first of all, the Bills are really good on offense, and that quarterback, I think he's MVP of the league. I think defensively they're okay; they're pretty good. But offensively, they really rush the ball well with, of course, and the quarterback obviously. But for Kansas City, they've been winning on defense and not making mistakes. And offensively, they've just been kind of okay. And to be honest with you, Mahomes hasn't played very well.
No.
You know, he misses throws. I've mentioned this earlier. He's missed throws I've never seen him miss before. And they're just kind of lackluster. You know, they don't have a big play guy on offense right now. They really don't. And, you know, they can bracket the tight end or bracket a receiver and shut him down. And what's he do with the ball now? He doesn't have the legs he used to have, you know, to beat things. So, this isn't the last one they'll lose this year.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been so good in the fourth quarter, but 4 of their 9 wins, Mike, decided on the very last play of the game. But it's over for their winning streak, franchise record 15 straight. So Buffalo's now won 4 in a row against the Chiefs in the regular season. However, the Chiefs have won 3 straight against the Bills in the playoffs. You're talking about the Chiefs defense. This was the first time, Mike, in 30 games where they'd allowed 28 points or more. Incredible consistency for Kansas City on defense.
No question. Of course, you know, Buffalo can rush the football.
Yeah.
I mean, James Cook, I mean, he's a good player, but I watched him. He got to the line of scrimmage and just got waylaid.
Mm-hmm.
And Jones, I mean, my gosh, what a monster he is. So
yeah,
he looks like, you know, he's 2 human beings in there. You know, he's like they got 2. I mean, if he's not the best defensive player in the league right now, I'd like to see who it is.
Yeah.
That's a runaway.
And your guy, Josh Allen, here Stephon Diggs was gone in the offseason. This game, they had no Keon Coleman, no Dalton Kincaid. You know, maybe some of these receivers are underrated, but it's not like Josh Allen has this glittering constellation of stars around him on offense. I think that makes what he's doing even more impressive.
Yeah, no question about that. I thought the comment at the end of the game when he scored the touchdown, that's a play of the year, and he got lambasted for that. But I think it probably is, because you look at the touchdown, the winning touchdown, where he scrambles and runs it in. The situation it's against an undefeated team,
right?
A team they haven't beaten. It's in the final moments, and to make that play, I think it is the biggest play of the season. I don't think that's a stretch at all.
It was 4th down too, wasn't it? 4th.
Yeah, it was 4. Yeah, it was a 4th and 2 or something like that.
Yeah. The Sunday night game, it was a fun game. Chargers and Bengals. The Chargers are up 27-6, and Cincinnati comes roaring back. Burrows threw 50 passes, 356 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mike, they don't have a defense, though, do they? They do not have a defense.
Yeah, that's anytime you're throwing that many passes, I can almost promise you're not winning games, unfortunately. But, I was kind of disappointed the Chargers on defense that they let them do that. That's a letdown, too. That's not to say the Bengals aren't real good. And, of course, what they're doing on offense is very good. But like you said, the Bengals, their Achilles heel right now is defense. There's no question about it.
Boy, 5 defeats by 7 points or less by Cincinnati. Yeah. Mike, you had I looked it up the other day. You're lucky if you're 500 in 1-score games, because that's just the way the league goes. You were like 7 games above 500, 24-17 or something like that. You had a really good record. Any key to navigating your way through close games?
Yeah. One of the records that we have, and I think we still have it, as a head coach, I think we're the best in the history of the NFL at protecting the league going into the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm proud of that, just for the fact that we didn't change how we played on offense or defense. Now, you look at the Chargers, for instance, they loosen coverage. They stop maybe doing some of the blitzes or whatever. Mm-hmm. You got to keep doing the things that got you there.
Yeah.
You can't become conservative. You can't. You got to play like it's the beginning of the game. And I think if you'll do that, you guys stay focused. But players know as soon as the calls start getting more conservative on both sides of the ball,
and they can sense it, huh?
Yeah, they can sense it, and they let go of the reins a little bit. You can't do that.
But Mike, you always gave your teams confidence. You think just part of that is when the going gets tough, you're not sweating it, and you just have that kind of an inner confidence.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to hopefully the standard that you set for the players and yourself and your coaching staff, that's what you play to every week. If you try and figure out how to beat these guys and just play to that, you're going to have a tough year. So we always had that standard, and we tried not to ever back off that standard. And sometimes it's hard, really, really difficult to do that, especially when you get some injuries and you're behind and all that stuff, but you just got to keep swinging. You can't let up.
Yeah. Yeah. There was never seemed to be any like panic in your teams down the stretch. Not saying you won all the close ones, but still, there never seemed to be any panic. Now, Packers ended up holding on to beat the Bears. Second week in a row, we had a team win. Looked like they were down. They're going to lose. Remember last week it was the Chiefs getting the block field goal. This time the Packers benefited the last second block field goal to hold on 20-19 against the Bears. They had a new play caller with Shane Waldron out in Chicago, Thomas Brown calling plays as the interim OC. What you think, Mike?
He did a good job. He really did. There was a difference. They were a little bit they were a little more liberal in the passing game. They let him take the ball down the field a little bit more, and I think that makes the guys excited offensively too. They're getting opportunities to make plays, and that'll be hard for people to play them now because they're not really quite sure what they're going to get out of them offensively. So for the next few weeks, you have a bit of an advantage. But I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah. It seemed like Caleb Williams got the ball out quick, and it seemed like they let him run a little bit more, and he's a pretty good runner.
Yeah, I think you take a little bit of the choke off him, so to speak. You want to have a little bit of a thumb on these young guys, and if you do too much, some of the stuff that made him a great player in college, you got to let them have that back a little bit too. And I think that's what they've done. Hey, you know how to win this thing. When things break down, you're on your own. Go make a play. We know you can. That kind of a thing. The
Packers, they've won 11 straight against the Bears. Caleb Williams was a sophomore in college the last time the Bears beat the Packers. So I guess some things never change. Now, Mike, speaking of not being able to hold a lead in the fourth quarter, the 49ers, this is the third time this season they've lost a lead late in a game, and they lose 20-17 to the Seahawks. Geno Smith, 80-yard drive. He capped it with a scramble touchdown with 12 seconds left. Anything you're seeing there from the 49ers defense in these late game situations?
I think people have to realize, first of all, that Geno's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers he's got for the season overall, that's real.
Yeah.
He's not a fluke, and they're
Right.
one-dimensional, but they're winning somehow with that. And I do think the 49ers underachieve on defense somewhat. I just think they have better talent than what they're doing defensively. And I know it's an indictment against them, but I think that's been that way now for a while.
Yeah.
Offensively, I wish they'd get out of that condensed set all the time on offense.
The 49ers?
Yeah, everything is squeezed down every snap. They just don't spread anybody out. And I think people have seen this offense now from these formations enough now where, they go back and look at people who've had success to it. And I think they need to change up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. The Monday night game, Texans 34, Cowboys 10. Cooper Rush threw 55 passes. Mike, you said this before. The Cowboys, they just can't run the ball, and also they can't stop the run.
No, they can't. And I tell you, I thought the defensive front played really pretty good compared to what's been going on in the past. The linebackers are light guys. They just can't get downhill and fit things. And when you can't stop anybody in the running game, you got to look at the linebackers to see how many plays they're actually making. They don't get through traffic very good. In the back end, they're just getting wore out. So they're just a bad team. They don't have enough good players to be a winner right now. They just don't. The cap has finally caught up with them. They couldn't do anything in the offseason, and people aren't paying enough attention to that. They've lost a lot of guys in the offseason, haven't been able to replace them. That's just who they are right now.
Yeah, yeah. And a thing you never see, even with some of their lesser teams, boy, there were a lot of empty seats at Jerry World. Again, that if you're Jerry Jones, that should tell you something. The fans have about had enough.
Yeah, and I think it's going to get a lot worse, unfortunately. By the time this season's over with, it's going to get really bad. And unfortunately, he's going to have to let Mike go, I'm sure. And I can't tell you that that's Mike's fault because the talent level there is just not very good.
Yeah, yeah. And making matters worse, I don't know if you saw the highlight as some debris fell from the roof before the game. It looked like a fairly big piece of like sheet metal. So
yeah, that was a little scary.
Yeah, how'd you like to be, Mike? You're out there pregame. You're talking maybe to one of your assistants, and all of a sudden something's falling from the sky, huh?
Well, I know when we would go down there and play when that was first built, and the punters used to love to hit the scoreboard, in the middle with the punts.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is a massive scoreboard. Okay, just a couple more before we take our first break here. Just a couple more highlights of the first games. We got this one wrong, both of us. Colts 28, Jets 27. And again, a case where the quarterback scored the decisive touchdown in the final minute. This was Anthony Richardson with the go-ahead touchdown. He's coming back from a 2-game benching. I don't know if you saw much of that game. If you did, what you think of Richardson?
He was better than he.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a district.
He was better, Jim, than he's been all year. I thought he was much better. He didn't hold the ball as much. He got rid of it. I don't think the Jets played well at all. They looked awful. They look like they just want the season to be over with. But I thought he did a pretty good job. It's the best I've seen him play so far. I think there's hope there with him, but he's just got so much to learn. He's just so raw.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the Jets have a bye week, and you talk about the season's over. It's definitely over for the GM, Joe Douglas. They fired him, so now they fired the head coach midseason and the GM midseason. That's just a tough situation over there.
Yeah, the fraudulent thing is the owner being told all the time that they've got great talent, most talent they've ever had, blah 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 blah. Well, yeah, as opposed to who, roster to Detroit or whoever. Yeah, I mean maybe it is their best team, but it doesn't make it any good. It doesn't make it the best.
Yeah, yeah, and Broncos 38, Falcons 6. Boy, the Falcons have been an up and down team, but Mike, Bo Nix, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's just killing it. 28 for 33.
I have to tell you, and I think I said this a few weeks ago, that of all the quarterbacks coming out, I thought he'd have the biggest impact.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was closest to be NFL ready, and he went to absolutely the perfect spot. Got a guy that really believes in him, take advantage of his strengths, his abilities, really kind of, fashion the offense around him and what he does really well. And once he has confidence going, he got going a little bit. And now they just add playmakers around him. They could be real good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Sean Payton's kind of like you in this respect. He's a quarterback whisperer. He knows how to develop quarterbacks.
Well, Sean definitely does. And defensively, they've been pretty darn good, which is really
Yes.
a surprise to me.
Yeah. They ended up sweeping the NFC South. The Broncos played the entire NFC South and a combined score of 125-37. I think Sean Payton probably, even though he's been out for a couple of years, he knows his old division. He's an old NFC South guy, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no question. And I tell you, you think back to when they were just starting to get going, their Kansas City game earlier in the year, and what a slugfest that was. So that's on the horizon too. So Kansas City's, they don't have a cakewalk in the park here. They're going to struggle coming down the stretch with some of these teams.
Yeah, yeah. The Lions, your Detroit Lions, my Detroit Lions, my favorite team. Just boy, if you're not on your game, you will get annihilated. 52-6 over the Jaguars. This is like their third. I mean, they beat the drums off the Cowboys. What was that, like 42-7 or something like that? And they just humiliated the Jaguars. 412 yards passing for Jared Goff, 4 touchdowns. It's Jacksonville, Mike, their worst loss ever. It's Detroit's largest victory ever. Now, granted, Trevor Lawrence wasn't at quarterback for the Jaguars. The Lions had a franchise record 645 yards of offense. To me, they look, I gotta say it, they remind me of the Greatest Show, what they do on offense.
Yeah, they do. I think in a lot of respects they're very similar. The receiver group, what they do, they're different. They try to be creative in both phases, but they really know how to run the football. And the offensive line is really, really good. The biggest issue with that team is they fixed the back end. The corners. They've fixed that, and they got some young guys that have grown up this season and are really starting to play well for them. And of course, the 2 linebackers, I love both those guys. I think they're really good.
Yeah.
Campbell was a great addition, kid out of Iowa. He's really having a great year. So yeah, I think of course they lost a terrific pass rusher, and they've just kind of filled in the blanks.
Yeah, and now they lost one of those linebackers that you like, Alex Anzalone, broken left forearm. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. They seem to have a way, though. They're missing somebody. They keep perking along.
Yeah, they'll fill it in. They have another young backer, and I don't remember his name, that has filled in at times and played really well for them. But they'll manage. They'll be just fine. The biggest thing is, defenses will always stop the run against them first, just like they did against us. And that's why you throw for 400 yards.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We'll be back with our middle segment, our Ask Mike segment after these words.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
Okay, we're back. We're here Wednesday, a day earlier than our usual podcast. A reminder for next week, because I know some of you guys can't wait to get your hands on the Talking Football podcast. Next week, Thanksgiving week, will be on Tuesday. We will record the podcast. So just make note of that. Couple things that struck me from this week. We talked before about how good the kickers. This was the year of the kickers. It was not a great week for kickers this weekend. And, a lot of times when the weather is colder, maybe they miss it. There weren't really, it was chilly in some spots, but not really cold weather games. Kickers missed 10 field goals last week and 3 extra points. Picks. Mike went 6-3. I went 5-4. So not the best week for us. We've been used to going 8-1, something like 7-1 the past weeks. Can't win them all right, Michael?
Well, that's what's so wonderful about the league. That's what makes it so interesting, because you don't know who's going to win. You really don't. You have kind of an educated guess, but in the final analysis, anybody can beat anybody, and that's coaches know that better than anybody. And I think the public assumes, like Jacksonville now done, they won't win another game, but they'll win again. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. You wonder how Vegas, how the gamblers make money, because so many of these games come down to a player or two.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and of course I don't do this, but if you investigate the roster and pay real close attention to the injuries, which Vegas does during the week, who's hurt, who's banged up, where the game's being played, what the record on the road's been, and outdoor. There's so many factors that they go over, but you got to spend all day looking at that stuff to call these games, and I got other things going on.
Mike, who's your rookie of the year? A month ago, I would have said, "What are you nuts?" It's Jaden Daniels, but Bo Nix, maybe.
Yeah, I think Bo Nix is headed in that direction right now. Jaden Daniels will be good. He'll finish up real good, but Bo Nix right now, that team's on fire. A little bit like Miami. We talked about this last week. Those two teams are coming up out of the ashes. They're getting better and better, and I think Miami might win out. To be honest with you, they could. Yeah,
and they have New England this week, which figures to be a victory, and it would be 3 in a row. Mike, Daniel Jones, we won't have to talk about him, I guess, the rest of the season. He's been benched. Tommy DeVito in. It's interesting. They passed up Drew Lock, who was, I think, a top 10 pick, the former Mizzou quarterback. So DeVito will start, and Drew Lock will be the backup. Daniel Jones won't even be the number 2 quarterback on game day. What do you think of that move?
Well, I think if you're going to do that with that guy because of performance, then you got to cut ties with him completely, and get 2 new guys in there and change the room up a little bit. Otherwise, it can be kind of a hard place for the starter to be in. The other guys there, and I think it had to happen. Unfortunately, what I think of him. I think he's a terrific athlete, but he's just not a good enough passer to be the starter in this league. Not a good team.
Yeah, what was it? It was about a $40 million a year contract. These quarterback salaries are amazing, but it's hard to imagine. Even they'll have to take on some dead money if they just release him. But it's hard to imagine him being back next year.
Well, no, he won't be. But unfortunately, that happens, and you just got to bite the bullet. San Francisco did the same thing with Trey Lance. You have to understand that's what it is, and you just bite the bullet, and that's it.
Yeah. Better to kind of tear the scab off and move on, as Blues general manager Doug Armstrong has told me on more than one occasion. The Giants are last in the league right now in scoring, 15.6 points a game. DeVito, you may remember him from last year. He won 3 straight games, became kind of a cult figure. He was living with his parents during the season because he's from New Jersey. What do you know about him?
Well, where would DeVito,
Illinois?
With a name like DeVito, where else would it be from New Jersey, right?
What's that?
With a name like DeVito, where else would it be from?
Right.
I'm walking over here. Get out of the way here, No, I think I remember watching him, and he was very impressive to me. I didn't know all the particulars behind why he didn't finish, but I think that's a great move for that team. I think it'll energize them. They obviously know him and really well and remember him. So I will say this about that head coach. I think he's excellent. I watch what they do. I think they're really well coached. I like how he calls the game. He gets an A from me from a coaching standpoint. They don't need to fire him. They just need to, better personnel.
Yeah. And they might have had better personnel if they kept Saquon Barkley, which brings us to the eagerly awaited Ask Mike. And this is a question, Mike from Maryland Heights. He wanted to ask you about the running back carousel. A lot of running backs switch teams this year. Who do you like of these three? This is what Mike from Maryland Heights, he's talking about. Joe Mixon moving to the Texans, Saquon Barkley moving from the Giants to Philadelphia, and of course Derrick Henry from moving from Tennessee to the Ravens. Who do you think's had the best season of the three, and why?
I think Derrick Henry is the popular pick because he'll not get much. They don't really lean on him often enough, in my opinion. Then all of a sudden he'll knock one off for about 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Mixon, my gosh, watching him play, he just reminds me of Marshall in some respects. I mean, he can make plays where there's just no plays there. He can he'll run you over, he'll make you miss. This game he played last week, I thought he put a show. He put a show on. I think for my money, I would say Joe Mixon. I know it's probably the obvious one every would pick would be Derrick Henry because of the effect he's had on the team, but for the fact that they haven't used him enough, where they're using Joe Mixon.
Yeah. And he's missed what? He missed a couple games because of injury, so his numbers aren't as flashy as Barkley and Henry, but he's really saved that team. They're really not the same without him.
No question. No question. He's exactly what that team needed, taking the heat off, and the offensive line still isn't. When they get that thing doctored up and better, then that's a team that'll end up being a little bit like Detroit, I think, because the coordinator, provided he stays, they're really good.
Yeah, and Barkley though too in that mix, he's had a great year. What have you seen out of him this year?
Yeah, I mean he's been really consistent. He gets more opportunities, I think, probably. He has more, not big plays, but good gains. Whereas Derrick Henry it's 2 yards, 3 yards, and all of a sudden he goes 70, kind of a deal, runs somebody over. But and it's a little bit like Mixon. Mixon's a little bit more of a violent runner. You know what I mean? And Saquon Barkley is just so athletic. You saw the move where he jumps backwards. He jumps over a tackler.
Unbelievable.
So, I mean, he makes plays most guys can't make. So all three of those guys, I mean, how do you pick? But a healthy Joe Mixon, I'd get excited about him.
Yeah. It's just, they've all had such great seasons. They all, their new teams got them for, like a song. It's just, does it puzzle you that it seems like running backs are so undervalued in terms of what they get paid and
well, I think that was a dead spot there for the last 10 years. And I think that's changed. Just the whole focus of offensive football has started to change again, back into more what I was familiar with, when I was in the league, the quarterback under the center and run the football like Detroit. Everybody's going to look at Detroit and say, yeah, well, maybe that's how we play it, and instead of all this run up the line scrimmage, snap the ball fast and throw the ball down the field stuff from college, that whammy bammy stuff. I hate it. It's not good football. And I think it doesn't help the quarterback grow or get better. And the running backs are going to be much more important, I think, in years to come than they've been in the past.
Yeah. Another question here for Ask Mike. This is Nick from Santa Clara. It's regarding Nick Sorensen, who's the defensive coordinator of San Francisco. And I guess Nick from Santa Clara isn't Nick himself, Sorensen, asking this question. But anyway, you had him. He was called Sunshine because he had that long hair. He looked like remember the Titans. Yeah, remember. He wasn't with you forever, but maybe 2000, 2001. What do you remember of him?
He was very intense. He's a terrific competitor, very athletic. He's a real good player, really good player.
Mm-hmm. Good special teams player for you.
Yeah, I mean, and he was good. Yeah, I mean, you could use him a lot of places on defense, and either one of the safeties or the nickel. I mean, he did a good job. He's a terrific competitor, And it's funny when it says like Danny Campbell, you guys that played the game that were kind of overachievers. Mm-hmm. And real intense guys that make great coaches, because the game's just too important to them. And that's Nick.
Kind of like you, but you're going to tell me you were a great tight end, though, right?
No, I was definitely an overachiever. I was a triple threat, that stumble, fumble, and fall. So it's.
How's Sorensen done? You said that, the 49ers defense has been a little disappointing. What's your read on him as a DC there?
I'm not sure. I just would like to see them be a little bit more creative with their pressures. He's feeling his way too a little bit, I guess. But I would hold any kind of thought about that until I see him a little bit more. The season's, I know, coming down to the end here pretty quick, but again, the season's not over yet. So
yeah, and in fairness to him, I recall last year when this show was on the radio, you kind of said the same general statement about the San Francisco defense, that they weren't playing as good as maybe you thought they should. So
I don't know if there's real good player leadership on that side of the ball, and you have to have that, particularly in defense. Offensively, it's not probably as big a deal, but defensively, you got one or two guys over there that, a London Fletcher that, I remember in practice one day, we were indoor facility, so it was towards the end of the season, and Scott team threw a ball down the field, and the safety, I can't remember who it was, dropped it. It was going to be an interception. And he just kind of jogged back to the huddle. And London Fletcher met him in a dead run and just absolutely ripped him a new one, And we don't do that. We don't practice like that, and catch that ball, and you catch it, you come back and finish it, and on and on and on. And there's a standard that those kinds of leaders establish, and I don't know if they have that there,
Yeah.
And it's so important on defense, Jim. I can't stress that enough. The Aeneas Williams kind of a thing. That's why we went and got him.
Yeah. Yeah. What a piece of work London Fletcher was. I mean,
Yeah, you
talk about pardon the language, a shit disturber. I remember your game against Cleveland in '99. He entered the Cleveland huddle. I don't know what he was doing, why he was there. They're huddling up, and he's right in there. He didn't care if someone was going to shove him or punch him.
He had a chip in his shoulder. I remember New Orleans, we weren't playing very good, and we stopped him. He picked up the ball and kicked it into the stands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He wouldn't take anything off of anybody,
No. What a passionate guy. He was so much fun to deal with. You'd go up to him and he'd always act like he was grouchy. What do you want? I don't want to talk to you. And then you couldn't shut the guy up. You're like, oh, okay, thanks, London. I got to go. I got a deadline to meet. He was just a delight for the Riders. But we'll be right back. We're going to look at Week 12 games when we return.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
We are back. A little bit different feel now to Week 12. 6 teams, 6 have buys this week. So there's only going to be 13 games. It's kind of a slim inventory of games. So you have all those buys. Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Saints, Jets, and Jaguars. Of these 13 games, road teams are favored in 9 of the 13. So we have a lot of the better teams playing the lesser, on the road at the lesser teams, which could lead to some uncertainty. Got a boatload of division games. We got 7 division matchups. And we've got a lot of teams with winning streaks, Mike. This is only the second time since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970 where 6 teams have entered Week 12 with a winning streak of at least 4 games. And you've got the Chargers, Arizona, they've won 4 in a row, Pittsburgh 5 in a row, Philly and Buffalo 6 in a row, and your Lions 8 in a row. And another thing, the NFC West, it's the first time since you were coaching those Rams since 2002 that all 4 teams in the NFC West had a 500 or better record at Week 12 of the season. Of course, not a whole lot to brag about because it's not like anyone in the West sitting there at like 9-1, but we do have Arizona at 6-4, and the rest of the division sitting at 5-5. San Francisco and Seattle and the LA Rams. Well, let's get to the games. Thursday night, we have a Rust Belt game. Steelers at the Browns. 8-2 Steelers. 2-8 Browns. Steelers, I'm surprised, Mike, they're only a 3.5-point favorite. It is at Cleveland. I know these rivalry games can get heated, especially this one. I remember a couple of years ago in a primetime game, there was quite a on the field ruckus. But Steelers are 4-0, Mike, since Russell Wilson became the starter, and they're plus 11 in takeaway giveaway, an underrated stat, I think, which is second best in the league. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I don't know that the Browns can do anything to stop them right now. I think the Steelers they know how to win as well as anybody in the league. They really do. And like I said, Mike Tomlin, for my money, is the best head coach in the league, has been for some time. He does more with less than anybody that I've ever seen. So they're disciplined. They don't beat themselves. They're tough, physical guys. The Browns are just flailing right now without a quarterback, and Chubb and all that. It's not going to make much difference. Defensively, they're struggling, and they shouldn't be. They've got some pretty good players, but they're a mess right now. But the thing about the NFL, a team that has some ability can jump up and win a game like this at any time. Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me because it is the Rust Belt, and they both play similar kind of football. But I'm just not going to bet against Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. So Steelers there. Okay, now one of the early games of note. Whoop. I lost you there. There you are. Vikings at Bears. Vikings 8-2. They were stumbling a little bit earlier, but they've now won 3 in a row. The Bears 4-6. They've lost 4 in a row. And NFC North matchup. Justin Jefferson, second in the league in receiving yards, 912. He's had a great season. He's coming very close to breaking a record set by your Torrey Holt for most yards by a receiver in his first 5 years in the league. Torrey what a start he had to his career. I mean, a great career all the way around, but boy, those first 5, 6, 7 years, he was unbelievable.
Well, nobody's come close to it. 6 years of 1,300 yards or better in a row. Nobody, not Jerry Rice. Nobody's done that, and he got to 10,000 yards faster than any other player in the history of the NFL. So, how's he not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Speaking of which, just yesterday, Mike, they announced the semifinalists. It's the 25 modern era candidates, which they'll whittle down, I think, to 15 for the final vote. Anyway, Torrey's in there again. It's time. That's one of the most puzzling things about the whole Hall of Fame, that Torrey's not in there yet.
Well, there's the main panel of 3 or 4 guys. There's one guy on there that just will not vote for him. We just won't let him pass. And that's too bad, but that's just the way it is.
And there's so few votes. Mess up a nomination. But anyway, Vikings at Bears. The Bears showing a little more feistiness with the new play caller. It's at Chicago. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, it's just too important for Green Bay at this point.
Vikings. Yeah.
Excuse me, the Vikings rather. Yeah, it's just too important for them at this point. And I know Sam has struggled here a little bit through some interceptions, but the one thing I know about that field is this is the time of year you want to throw the football. It's hard to get a pass rush. On that field is so loose and soft. You can't take off. It's a team to run. It's an offense. It's really the advantage for an offense in any respect, whether you're rushing the ball or throwing the ball. So I just think that they're a better team. I don't think the Bears won't handle that pressure as well as they like to. I think with Williams, they'll have something different for them defensively, blitz wise, and we all know how much they like to blitz. So I think the Vikings win this one going away. Yeah,
and Darnold did bounce back last week. He had the previous 2 weeks he had a combined 5 interceptions, but he didn't have any interceptions this past week. So against the Titans, so looks like he's back on this game. Okay, yeah, Lions at Colts. Lions again, another road favorite, 7.5. Lions are 5-0 away, Mike. Being on the road doesn't bother them. You had, what was it, your 0-1 team went unbeaten on the road?
Yeah,
which doesn't happen very often. I don't care who you're playing. It's tough to win on the road, isn't it?
it is. We're the only second team in the history of the league at the time to do that.
Do
I
it,
know there's
yeah.
been several teams since that time have done it, but it's very difficult, very, very difficult. But the Lions are just such a good football team all the way across. And at this point, there's an intimidation factor. When players and coaches look at this team, look at what they do, and that defensive staff, they're not going to go to bed at night. They're going to how am I going to stop this run? Jahmyr Gibbs? How do you slow him down? Well, you don't. So they'll win this game.
Yeah, Detroit leads the league in scoring offense, 33.6 points per game. That's at a greatest show pace. Third in total offense, our yards per game, just under 400. It's their best start since 1934. Last week, it was their best start since 1954, when you and I were toddlers. But 1934, we weren't even a glimmer in our parents' eyes in 1934.
No. That's a whole different century, Jim.
Yeah. 90 years, their best start in 90 years. So it's just a fun season. Obviously, you and Campbell have a good relationship. You were telling us before the show, you texted him a couple of weeks ago. How's he doing?
Yeah, I just felt like they're the closest offensively to what we were, I think, that I've seen in the years, last 22, 23 years. So they're special. They're unique.
Yeah. Oh, you texted him that? Let him know that?
Yeah. He had a nice reply. He's such a humble, nice human being. You see why guys like playing for him.
Yeah. And you mentioned before when we were talking about last week's game about their defense being better in the back end. Kirby Joseph, one of those guys on the back end, 7 interceptions, first in the league. So they're coming up with some turnovers. And you and I scoffed at one of the TV analysts saying that the offense runs through Ramon St. Brown. You and I both know it runs through the running backs in the running game. They have a rushing touchdown, Mike, at least one rushing touchdown in 24 straight games. That's an NFL record. That's a consistent ground game.
Well, that's why when guys play them, they get it. They understand. Just like when we had Marshall, you gotta, if you don't stop that running game, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
If you make him one dimensional, then you got Goff back there. I mean, if they're hitting on all cylinders, the best you can do is just try and keep pace with them on your offense.
I'm trying to think. Have you ever seen like a better tandem of two backs? I go all the way back. Now, some of our younger listeners are going to say, "Who the hell are those guys?" Does Zonka and Kick with the Dolphins? But have you ever seen a better combo than these two? They're amazing.
No, both these guys are better than either one of those. And I was, I do remember them. They were really good players. Not to belittle them at all, but I think what we're seeing now is historic. Both these guys are just great backs.
So we're both going with the Lions. You always go with the Lions, right?
Yep.
No matter what. Okay, NFC East game. Cowboys at the Commanders. Commanders are a 10.5-point favorite. They're 7-4. They've lost 2 in a row. Can Daniels kind of regain his magic here, Mike?
Yeah, he'll do it. Dan Quinn will get him ready to go. This is personal for Dan as well. So yeah, I think this Commanders win this one.
Yeah. The Cowboys coach just said he's sticking with Cooper Rush. Would you be tempted to use Trey Lance? Or
no, gosh, no. There's nothing wrong with Cooper Rush. He's not playing any worse than Dak did. I mean, Cooper Rush is a good player. Yeah. That's not the issue. He's not. If he was the issue, yeah, but I mean, it's just nonsensical for somebody to say, "Well, he's the reason." Yeah, obviously, he's not the reason.
Yeah. Okay, Chiefs at Panthers. We always have to talk about the Chiefs because they have such a big following. It's a rare noon start. The Chiefs are usually on prime time or at least late afternoon, but at Carolina, they are 11-point favorites. Panthers coming off a bye week. Carolina's last in total offense, 29th in scoring offense. They're only 16.7 points a game. And they're last in rushing defense. They're allowing 160 yards a game, Mike. this should be a game where Kareem Hunt gets going. I don't know if Pacheco's any closer to playing, but the Chiefs kind of got to get it back together, don't they?
They do, but this team's had a week off, and I think the Bryce Young is starting to hit his stride and become who they'd hoped he'd be.
Mhm.
This is a very, very, very different game. This is a dangerous game for the Chiefs.
Mhm.
This is one of those market. It can be an upset for me, just because the Chiefs going there, playing in their stadium after coming off that loss. All the typical things. And then seeing a team that's had a bye, plenty of time to prepare, and a quarterback now is starting to play pretty good. That's a dangerous, regardless of the stats. This one could be a lot closer than people think.
Yeah, before the bye, they'd won 2 in a row under Bryce Young, so we'll see what happens. Are you still picking the Chiefs or no?
Yeah, I'll pick the Chiefs, but it's going to be a hard game for them to win.
Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? We got Titans at Texans. That's the old Oilers versus the new Oilers. Broncos at the Raiders. You figure the Broncos should take care of that. A game I wanted to ask you for a pick now is one of the few really marquee games of the week. The kind of puzzling 49ers, I'll call them, 5-5 at the Packers, 7-3. Packers are 2.5 point favorites. They're really lucky to beat the Bears. Jordan Love's thrown a few picks. How do you see this one, Mike?
It's so hard to beat the Packers in Lambeau Field. I can't stress that enough.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have some luck. I do think that those two receivers and the head coach, I just think the Rams beat them. I think they beat them.
The 49ers, you mean?
Excuse me, the 49ers. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
The 49ers with the running back and the receiver group that they have. I just think Shanahan is too good in these situations when his back is against the wall. When you go back and look at the games where he's had his back against the wall and what he's done, whether it's LA or the Rams or any of those teams, he's always come out and had this great game plan and absolutely nail it. And I think that's what he'll do in this game. I really do.
And McCaffrey's third game back, I think he maybe have his legs under him a little more. He was out for so long. It takes more than a week or two usually to kind of get up to form.
It does. They didn't look bad to me on offense. They did so many good things. They're just not scoring points like they're used to scoring, and that's
yeah.
They're very conservative on offense, which would be hard for the Packers because they don't typically in the past have scored a whole lot of points.
Yeah.
And I think Jordan is struggling just a tick. I don't know. I just feel like 49ers go back and win this one.
Yeah. I kind of like the 49ers also. They really need this game. There looks like the NFC West with all the parity over there is going to go down to the wires. Okay, as we wrap it up here, I got 3 more games I want to get to. Cardinals at the Seahawks. Cardinals are coming off a bye week, but they're red hot, and the Seahawks, they've been up and down, but they got to be feeling pretty good after upsetting San Francisco. Cardinals are favored by a point on the road.
Yeah, I haven't been a Cardinal fan all year, but I am this week. They made a believer out of me. Of course, quarterback, I think of him. I think he's just anytime I can see him play, I love watching him. But yeah, I think the Cardinals win this. And
that 4 in a row they've won, and they've played really good defense during that time too.
That's always been to me the Achilles heel for them. But they're playing well, and I just feel like coming off a bye week when you're playing well like that, my past experience is it gives you a little bit of a momentum. Even with the momentum you've already built up, it's really good.
Okay. I'm going Cardinals here. I got 2 games. I got to pick one of these where I differ with you. But Sunday Night Football, pretty good matchup. Eagles at Rams. Eagles are 3-point favorites. The Rams bounced back. They had Puka and Cooper Kupp going last week, over 200 yards receiving between them. Speaking of improved defense, the Eagles, during the 6-game winning streak, they're allowing only 13.8 points a game, which is best in the league during that stretch. Mike, what do you think here?
I want to pick the Rams in the worst way, but I just don't think they can beat the Eagles. Not the way the Eagles are playing right now.
Yeah, yeah. The Eagles seem to have it going. Jalen Hurts has a rushing touchdown in 5 straight games. He's just one off tying the league record for most consecutive games with a rushing touchdown by the quarterback. Lastly, Mike, we have Monday Night Football and the Harbaugh Bowl. John and his Baltimore Ravens against Jim and the Chargers. This is their 3rd meeting. It's the only time in NFL history they've had brothers go against each other. Chargers first in scoring defense, Ravens second in scoring offense. What do you see here, Michael?
Hey, you know what a Charger fan I am. I'm just this is an emotional pick for me now. The Chargers. Chargers.
Herbert looks good now. He's playing some great football.
Well, yeah, and Shane Day is a quarterback coach who worked for me for many years, and it's hard for me not to think that they're really good on defense, and a quarterback all of a sudden's got it going on. I picked. It's an easy pick for me, the Chargers.
All right, I'm gonna pick the Ravens just to be different. Any thoughts on the Ravens? They look unbeatable at times, but yet they're sitting here with 4 losses. I mean,
we've said that all year. You just don't know who's going to show up for them.
Right.
They're tough at home, but at times it just. And the other thing I scratch my head is you got Derrick Henry. I mean, I just think I don't know. I know they run the ball well and all that, but that big old dude, I think I'd hand him the ball 25 times.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there are some games where they just kind of
disappears.
Forget about him. I don't know.
It's just like you have to have a plan that you somebody's got to tell you, hey, we're getting away. You got to go back to it. You cannot not hand that big dude the ball.
Not forget about him. Okay, well that's it for this week, Mike. It went by fast. Remember, next week we're on Tuesday on Talking Football with Mike Martz and JT. See you then.